Okay, good afternoon. I think we'll get started. Thanks for your patience. I'm Andy Kelm, and I'm a general manager in our mobile services group in AWS. And I'd like to welcome you today to Mobile 317, the first public showing of the AWS Mobile Hub. I'm joined today by John Burry, Principal Solution Architect in AWS, and we are super excited to show you our latest work in our mobile services team. And it's really going to make your lives as developers much easier in taking advantage of all the great services we've built for mobile developers. Is this going to work? Nope. There we go. So what are we going to cover in the session today? We'll start with a little bit of PowerPoint. Sorry about that, but I want to set some context for why did we think of building the Mobile Hub and what are we trying to achieve with it. I'll give you a little bit of feature overview so you get some context for what's in it, but then I promise to keep the PowerPoint to a minimum so John can take all the time and really do a detailed walkthrough of the experience, both the management console as well as the on-device or the app experience. And you all are getting really the world premiere of the AWS Mobile Hub. Our engineers back in Seattle are furiously pushing console updates as we speak, and I don't think the Mobile Hub is live yet, but it should be later today. So after a session, hopefully you can go and build your own apps. So 3 simple things to cover today. The mobile journey for AWS started about 2 years ago. We launched SNS Mobile Push. It was our first foray into doing something special, something unique for mobile developers to help solve their problems. Since then, we've been on quite a journey. We've launched a number of services, and we've had a chance to work with thousands of different customers. Just a sampling of those are here, and you'll recognize some big consumer brand names there: Periscope, Yelp, Tinder, and others all build their mobile apps on AWS, as do thousands of enterprises that you don't see up there. And through these conversations, we've heard a number of different things and observed trends in what's going on with our mobile customers. And what we see continuously and really accelerating this year is that, and I'll use quotes, mobile is growing in all directions. Of course, published mobile apps continue to grow at a rapid clip. This year we passed 3 million published mobile apps just between Apple and the Google stores alone. If you fold in the Amazon App Store and the Microsoft Store, the Windows Store, we're over 4 million apps in the market. But the story has gone beyond mobile. Mobile platforms now are doing much more than just mobile devices and tablets. Last year, TVs became an opportunity for mobile developers with the launch of Amazon TV or Fire TV. This year we've got the Apple TV out there, and developers are super enthusiastic about taking their apps and experiences and putting those on the big screen. Not only are they working on the big screen, now they're working on the small screen. And watch apps are increasingly popular. There's already more than 10,000 published apps for the Apple Watch and more on Android Gear. In addition to that, car apps are starting to come out. So mobile developers have a really huge challenge here. There's an increasing number of apps that people are clamoring for on their mobile devices, and they've got all these opportunities to go elsewhere. But each of those is a little bit different. So not only are the numbers of mobile apps and the numbers of platforms growing, but apps are getting much more complex, actually. 5 years ago, we started with very simple mobile apps, not too much service connectivity, and those have evolved today to really complex beasts. We did a teardown recently of the top 1,000 apps and found that on average these apps had at least 11 SDKs in them, some as many as 30 or even 40 SDKs in them. They're connecting their own custom backends, they're connecting all kinds of analytics service, advertising, storage, push, you name it. There's a lot that goes into these mobile apps these days. And it's a big task for mobile developers to build these quickly and easily. I mentioned that we started at AWS in mobile a couple of years ago when we launched SNS Mobile Push. Since then, we've added a full portfolio of services. We added an analytics service, we added an identity service, a data synchronization service, We added an API service, a serverless compute backend, and earlier this year we launched a device testing service. So now mobile developers tell us, hey AWS, you've got what I need, but it's complex. I'm trying to build complex apps, and you're not making that simpler. If you go to the AWS Management Console, you know there are a lot of choices for what to put into your mobile app. And then, once you find what you want, it's not always easy to wire those up. Let's look at a simple example. I'm building a mobile app, and I want to put a sign-in screen in my app. This is not differentiating. I just need people to sign in. So I'm going to use Amazon Cognito so I can issue temporary limited privilege credentials to the app so it can get access to my backend. So I start with the AWS Mobile SDK. Well, then I need identity provider SDKs. I'm going to need one for Google, and I'm going to need one for Facebook. And then I've got to wire up my own backend. And then I need a sign-in screen, and I need all that integration code between those SDKs and my sign-in screen to make it work. All of this for something that adds minimal value to my app and is a distraction from the experiences I'm trying to build. And we realized, as we went through this ourselves, that there has to be a better way with this full portfolio of services now to build mobile apps. So we set out to build something new this year. If you will, we wanted to reinvent the experience for mobile developers on AWS. When we did this, we set one goal for ourselves, which was we wanted mobile developers, from the time they landed on the console to the time they had a working app in Xcode or Android Studio, we wanted that time to be less than 10 minutes, which was an audacious goal from where we started. And we set 4 underlying tenets for the experience we wanted to build. The first one was we wanted an integrated console. Now, our team loves to play table tennis, but we don't want to make our developers ping pong across all the service consoles. You can go to the IAM console, the S3 console, the SNS console. All that is a lot of work and distracting for mobile developers. So we wanted to consolidate this in one integrated experience. Second, we wanted to do more than just give you SDKs and services. We heard loud and clear that you want to combine things into actual features that power your app experiences. So we wanted to prepackage things that combine multiple services and much more client implementation beyond the raw or low-level SDKs. Third, we wanted to take care of all the service provisioning for you. We wanted to keep you in that single integrated console. We also wanted you to take advantage of all the security best practices that AWS offers. But we didn't want to make you have to learn all the ins and outs of it. And we didn't want you to have to dive into the IAM stuff on your first visit to the AWS console. So we wanted to automatically provision all that with zero touch. And finally, and the most important step, honestly, is we wanted to give you actual working code that works with your provision services immediately. We didn't want some static sample apps that had been written 2 years ago that hadn't been updated. We wanted you to have something that immediately worked with what we just provisioned on your behalf. The result, and you'll see it in a few minutes, is really something you can get started with in 10 minutes. Depending on the features you add, it can be 3 minutes, honestly. And it's extremely quick to get started now on AWS. So let's take a quick tour of the experience. I'll give you a quick overview of the features, and then John can come and demo the experience. So the AWS Mobile Hub is a project-based approach to building mobile apps. And we look at 5 sort of life cycle or stages of development. We start with letting you select and configure features to add into your app. Then we let you download the source code to take advantage of those features in your mobile app. Once you've built your app, we let you test it on real devices in the cloud to make sure that you've gotten all the bugs out. Once it's tested and you've published, we give you an analytics dashboard so you can see how your app is doing in the market. Is usage growing? Is monetization growing? And so forth. And finally, because this is built on AWS, we don't want to hide all of the services we provisioned for you. We want to give you access to those when you're ready. And that's the resources panel where you can dive into specific things that we provisioned on your behalf if you want to do advanced configuration. So those are the 5 steps. Let me talk about the features that we offer for a minute. So these are the 6 features we let you add to your mobile app. There's a user sign-in feature, which lets you configure user sign-in optional, mandatory, or not at all, with public identity providers and your own identity system. We let you add push notifications to your app. We have an app content delivery feature, which lets you store application assets like resource files or media files, and then send those down to your app when you're ready. And we can do that through a CDN. There's a user data storage feature, which lets you store files and also key value pairs, so you can customize your user's experience and store all their data in the cloud for processing. There's an app analytics feature, which lets you track what's going on with your users. And then there's a cloud logic feature, which lets you run back-end code in the cloud without having to manage infrastructure. So let's dive into each of those quickly. The user sign-in feature, as I mentioned, has 3 options. You don't have to make your user sign in. If you don't, we'll still issue you temporary limited privilege credentials, so those guest users can get access to your backend and your AWS services securely. But if you do want them to sign in for other reasons, you can make that optional or mandatory. You can log in with Facebook, and you'll see in the console that Google, Twitter, and log in with Amazon will all be coming very soon. Or you can log in with your own identity system. And you simply put in your API keys, depending on the provider, and click Save, and you're off and running. The sample app that we give you gives you the full sign-in page that you can use for your app, or you can customize it with your own background images, whatever, and it includes all the integration code between that sign-in screen and all these other SDKs. This feature is powered by Amazon Cognito Identity. The second feature we offer is push notifications. And here you have multiple options. You can choose the Google Cloud Messaging platform. You can choose the iOS, either the dev or the prod environment, and you put in your keys and you're off and running. You can create topics to subscribe your users to, so you can publish messages to groups of users with one publish action, or you can send individual messages to particular users. This feature is powered by Amazon SNS, and the Quick Start app includes all of the code you need to register your app with the push services, whether that's Google or Apple. And then the app will take your tokens that it receives and it'll register those with Amazon SNS. The third feature is app content delivery. As I mentioned, this is for storing things like an audio file or images for background or big resource files that you couldn't bundle with your App Store submission. We'll store these in S3 for you, and then if you like, we'll create a CloudFront distribution so you can cache those files at the edges around the world and deliver very quickly to your apps when they come online. This is powered by S3 and CloudFront, and the Quick Start app includes an on-device cache and gives you a full example of how you might download and cache those in the background of your app. Okay, the fourth feature, user data storage. This is as simple to configure as on or off. Don't have to do anything else. And there's 2 actually features within this one. First, you can store files for your users in the cloud, things like photos. You can store those in a public folder, which everyone who has the app might have access to, or you can have private folders for each user, so that if I've got photos and it's not a social app, those are limited access only to the users that stored those files. In addition to files, we provide key value pair storage. You can save things like game state, or user profile settings or preferences. And then if a user signs in, we can sync those across that user's devices. So this is powered by Amazon S3 and Cognito Sync. And the Quick Start app includes examples of both. There's a file explorer as well as a settings panel that can show you how to use those features. Okay, app analytics, very straightforward, yes or no. It includes instrumentation of standard session events. When does the session start? When does it end? It also allows you to do monetization events, so you can track revenue, and custom events, so you can track levels in a game or particular things you want to track that are unique to your app. This feature is powered by Amazon Mobile Analytics, and the dashboard is actually immediately accessible in the Mobile Hub screen that John will show you in a second. Okay, finally, the sixth feature is Cloud Logic, and this is designed to let you run cloud functions in the background with AWS Lambda. You can write functions in JavaScript or Java, or now today Python, and you simply paste your code, and AWS Lambda will take care of all the hardware provisioning and scaling necessary to run those functions in response to calls from your mobile app. The sample app that John will show you shows how you can invoke those functions directly from your mobile app, pass it parameters, and get return values. Okay, so those are the 6 features. You simply go through those. A lot of those are just yes, no, do I want this, do I want that? A couple of keys you got to paste in there. Then, after you've configured what you want, it's time to download code. And as I mentioned, the AWS Mobile Hub actually has a code generator service behind it. So it takes what you've selected, and it takes the services we've provisioned on your behalf as a result of that, and produces a customized Xcode or Android Studio project with all the source you need to immediately get up and running. You choose which one you want, and then you download it. And the Mobile Hub here, and John will walk through this, includes all the documentation you need to understand what's in that sample app. You might want to use that app as a starting point and build features on top of it, or you might want to take code from that sample app and cut and paste it in your existing project. And this will document all of that, so it's very easy to understand what you need to do. So we've configured features, we've downloaded our source code, now it's time to test our app, and you have easy access to AWS Device Farm. If you didn't notice, we launched this a couple of months ago. It's a brand new service with hundreds of actual device and OS version combinations, and many more devices behind each of those flavors, hosted in the cloud that lets you test your app on those devices very quickly and easily, using automation scripts such as Calabash, Appium, and multiple other options. So you've got a very fast and easy way to test your app, very low cost, you only pay by the minute, no commitments required. After you've tested, you can go to the analytics dashboard and get a readout of how are my daily active users doing, how are my monthly active users doing, what's happening with retention, monetization, so forth. Easy access right there from the project dashboard. And now I'll hand it over to John. So that's the AWS Mobile Hub. John's going to give you the first public viewing, and you should be able to use this for yourselves later today.
What I have on the screen right now is the Mobile Hub, what Andy's been talking about. One of the most exciting things I've played with in a long time. So again, my name's John Burry. I'm a principal solutions architect here. My focus is on mobile app development and IoT, and I've been a mobile developer for many years, and my life has been very, very hard compared to what it is now in terms of the mobile development space. The progress has been pre-AWS, pre-cloud, then AWS services, then AWS mobile services, and now wiring up AWS mobile services using what I'm going to show you here and how easy it is to do. What Andy was talking about earlier, it really takes seconds, doesn't even take minutes in some cases. What I'm looking at is a rather large blown up version of the hub, and generally it's about this size on the screen. But I have one sample app on the left-hand side. You can see a big plus on the right where I can create a new app, and your apps would be represented here by these boxes. And when we talk about apps, this isn't an app factory in the sense where I can pick and choose from a menu of apps. As Andy walked through, what it is, it's a wiring up tool. It wires up and provisions all of the services for you. Whereas previously, before Mobile Hub, we would go and set up a Cognito identity pool. We'd set up mobile analytics. And the console would give us code to copy and paste, which was great, but we would copy and paste that code into our application. You don't have to do that now, and so much more. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new project from scratch. The first thing I'm going to do, obviously, is give this project a name. I'm just going to say John's project. And when I create this project, what's going to happen now is I have the features that I can choose. I'm going to zoom a little out, but I'm going to go one by one through these features. So these features, you see the titles of them, as you've seen in the slides previously. User sign-in, push notifications, app content delivery. The titles aren't Cognito or S3 or CloudFront. Now, this room is filled probably with mobile developers who are very familiar with the mobile services, so you understand this. But you can also look at the bottom of the screen and you can see for each of these what's powering the particular feature. So you can understand how that maps to what you've been doing. So when I want a feature, I just click on the plus and I go into it, and I'll do that in a second. But I want to first call out the left-hand navigation, which are different modes that I would be in the mobile hub I'd use. I'm currently in the configure mode. And after I go through the project features that I want in configure mode, I would go to build mode. And build mode is where the magic happens. That is where you will see the pre-generated code for me will be downloadable. I also have test and analytics, and if you notice, there's little visual cues. The standard cue for this is going to launch outside of Hub, taking us into device farm or mobile analytics console, and I can actually see details there. And the bottom left is resources. It's actually really exciting, resources too, and I'll show that in a second. But I'll tease it, just it's called resources, but I'll tell you. I'll show you. But let's first go into user sign-in and show you how easy this is. It is push button simple. Do I want user sign-in? Currently, I'm set to no. I don't have any user sign-in feature in my app. But if you're familiar with Cognito, you have the option of, you have options such as optional sign-in or mandatory sign-in for the app to work. And I can choose which one I want. Sign-in is optional, sign-in is required. I'm going to go ahead and choose sign-in as optional, and then you see I get more options now, step by step. What do I want to wire this up to? You see Facebook is available, and a custom sign-in for what we refer to as developer authenticated identities. And all of that is available, or OpenID Connect actually, it can be wired up. But you can see, as Andy said, the team is feverishly coding. One of the kind of neat things is just to see how quickly this has come along in the last few weeks and even days. So you'll see those light up very soon, the other options. So I'm going to choose Facebook right now. And when I do, steps me through the next step, and that would be to input my app ID, okay, what that is. So I'm going to go ahead right now and put a placeholder in. In a second, you'll see a real app ID come in. I'm going to save changes. And so what that's going to do now is that is actually going to provision Cognito for me and make this available as a service as part of my code. So now, while that's doing that, I'm going to actually pop on over to configure and go into push notifications. And I can see the same thing. Not required, or yes, I want push. And this is really cool how easy this is. Choose push notifications. Now I choose my platform, Android, iOS, iOS production or iOS dev. And then I go ahead and fill out the details. I upload my certificate, optional password, and so forth. And once that's done, that's automatically going to be provisioned. Actually, I'm going to go back here and zoom out because I had since I didn't put the Facebook ID in, it didn't provision that, but you'll see in a second happen. App content delivery now. I'm going to show that as well. So with app content delivery, I have Amazon S3 and CloudFront. This is incredibly simple. Do I want a CDN setup? Boom, one click. I got a single location or a global CDN setup. And notice one of the things I hadn't called out here yet, but if you have an eagle eye, you'll see it change on the right-hand side of the screen. The gray bar, a dark bar on the right, gives you context-sensitive information for where I am. And it's really good information, actually. I was really impressed when I first saw this. The team has written not only what's happening on the screen, what the implications of your choices are, but look at there. There's pricing usually. When I say usually, when it's an impact. In many cases, the pricing is no cost or the specific cost for the service, and it'll call that out. If you're familiar with this and you're using Mobile Hub a lot, you don't need to see it. Save some screen space by clicking on that blue on the right, but I'm going to keep it open so you can take a look at it as I move through this. I'm going to say I want a global CDN, save changes, and so I'm going to configure more features. Let's go to user data storage. I want to store user data. And you can see basically what's happening here, as Andy was showing in the slides earlier. Amazon S3 is going to be provisioned, a bucket's going to be provisioned for me automatically cognitive sync as well. The point that I want to make when I talk to people about this now is that, and Andy and the team, we want to convey this isn't training wheels. This isn't saying, oh, you guys are all great developers, but for those who don't know how to develop, use Mobile Hub. It's not that at all. It is for people like myself, yourselves, who've been developing mobile apps for many, many years and don't need to do the same thing over and over again. These are patterns that we would constantly do. It just saves us time. Tools save us time. And when we save time, we also increase quality, because the more we manually have to do, whether it's even copy and pasting, the more we manually have to do, we introduce problems. So we'll show you, when I show you the code, where we give you a framework that you can actually expand upon the sample app that we give you, or you can copy and paste it. But because of, like I mentioned, when you copy and paste, there's the opportunity to introduce issues. We walk you through and tell you exactly where to copy and paste from and to. It's really, really helpful. So again, this is not a training wheel tool. This is not something that's for primary paint by colors. This is something that allows us to rapidly execute on starting that next app and not have to think about the logistics of wiring up the services. So that's why, again, user data storage. I'm going to go say store user data and save changes, and boom, S3 bucket. I could have gone into the console, set up an S3 bucket. That's not that hard to do, but it takes an extra couple steps I don't have to think about. Okay, and then app analytics. Same thing. Do I want analytics? This is one of the easiest ones. Yes, boom, I now have analytics in my app that I'll build out. And cloud logic. Give a shout out to Lambda, one of the coolest things ever in terms of code that you can place in the cloud. And if you're not playing with Lambda, I highly suggest you do. Here I have multiple Lambda functions that are part of my console I can pick and choose from and wire them up. One of the best practices is actually to have a library of Lambda functions in your back pocket that you would use in your apps. Functions that would validate information, functions that would process photos, process data. And here I'm just going to start a new app, and I just pick and choose from those functions. And the code in the client is automatically made for me. In the past, what I would do is open up one of my text editors where I would have this code, sample code, and I would copy and paste it into an Xcode environment, for example. And then I would fill out the particulars. I would then copy and paste the specific attributes that I need for, in this case, for the Lambda function. Make sure I've got the right function name. Make sure I've got the right reference points that I'm going to use. Don't have to worry about that anymore. So what I would do is just click checkboxes on the functions I want. I want form validation, and I want image processing. I could create a new function from here. And what that's going to do is it's going to take me into the Lambda console. I can go ahead and make the function, come back, and it's going to be available to me as well. So when I save changes, this will be added to my project. I'm going to go back to configure more changes. Now remember I teased what resources was? When I click on resources, this is like opening up the hood. Because before, when I picked the features, all of that stuff that's happening in the background, what resources is showing me is what it's done. These are the endpoints, these are the particulars, these are the bucket names. This is the detail. This is stuff that would be copied into my code by the service, but at any point in time, I want to see what that bucket name is. I want to see what that identity pool name is. Here's where it is. So resources is going to be one of your best friends when you use Mobile Hub. So let's get to the good stuff. Build. So right now, first I choose the platform, iOS or Android. I'm going to select iOS. And in real time on the back end, a package is being made for me. Now, Andy said this several times. I think I've already said it several times, but I do need to underscore it because it's easy to miss this point. This is custom code. It is not a GitHub link. We're not giving you a reference point that everyone gets. This code is specific to the features you've chosen and very specific to the attributes of those features you've chosen. And the unique provisioning gives you unique IDs. Only you have those IDs. And so this code works out of the box with all of this wired up for you. Now, notice there's more than just the platform. So you saw earlier it was generating the source code. Now I can click on this link and download the source code. But before I do, on the left-hand side here, we're stepping you through some of the details. So under setup, we're showing you what you do next. If this isn't something that you're familiar with already, we're going to make sure you understand exactly what to do. Install Xcode, get it working, compile and run the app. In the user identity feature I did, here's the details behind that. Now, again, in order to make it a little bit easier, I'm not going to ask you to read all this, but to give a sense of the content, this shows you how inside the app, the demonstration of wiring up the user identity works. So when you look at the app, open the app up, go to the mobile hub side by side, and see what's happening here to play with it. Same with app analytics. It's showing you down here what the code sample is. User files, what to try, content delivery, how to try it out, user profile data, cloud logic. When I click Discover, these are my identifiers and constants. This is what the code is going to look like when I open it up in Xcode. So I mentioned earlier about copying and pasting. So one of the key things that we're doing here, I actually go back up here, under Develop is using the sample app as a starter app or using the sample app as an example. And just to call out what this means, basically, is when you do download the package, you're going to get this sample app, and you may choose to take it and build on top of it. Keep the project as it is and just start building out more features onto that app. It's a legitimate approach. Depends on what your app is. Or you may need to say, I've already begun development of another app. I've created the screens. I've wired up everything, but I haven't yet connected it to AWS. We walk you through where to copy and paste, as I mentioned earlier. So this first option is using the sample app as a starter app, and what to do. Remove the demo features, rename the project, rename the app, set your bundle ID and configure app services. And using it as an example, again, as I told you, I love this because as a developer, the more I just focus on the specific features of my app, we like the term undifferentiated heavy lifting. We're trying to handle, AWS is trying to handle the undifferentiated heavy lifting here, meaning you don't have to think about what to do if you want to move what we've linked up into another project. We tell you where to go grab the code and move it. It's really, really nice. So again, to identify your user, here's where the code is. It's in this file, it's on these lines. To record a custom analytics event, here's where the file is. This file, these lines. Record a monetization analytics event, and so forth. Upload a file, load contents directory, download a file. Very, very detailed. And this is not training wheels, but this does save you a lot of time. And the faster you can code, again, the better quality you're going to have because you're focused on the quality of your features. You're focused on minimizing bugs of code that you've written. Hopefully, you don't have to think about the code that is automatically generated for you. Okay, so moving on then. We also have a software license detail. Basically, this is showing you what, in fact, it's a license.txt file, and when this downloads, you have details. Basically, you own this code for Mobile Hub. It's auto-generated for you, but we're not trying to create a license with you. And you can read the details behind that. And then in troubleshooting, a few things about Xcode issues and Cloud Logic issues and where to go and so forth. So I mentioned I'd download the iOS package, and I'm going and clicking on the download right now, and it's coming down to my computer. And what's fun about this as well is the Mobile Hub is a good source of ideas too. There's things in here that are best practices that you may not have known about as you look through this code. So I'm going to move on over here, and what I have actually is the same app that I've already downloaded, just to make sure that if we had network connectivity issues, that it would be here. So if I go ahead and show you what I just detailed on the screen, there's my license.txt. There is the Xcode project, but we also have a README folder. And inside this README folder, if I open up the index.html, I have references very similar to what I saw inside the hub. But what's really nice about this is when I download the app and I zip it up and I send it to my buddy, he doesn't even have to have the mobile hub. She doesn't even need to have the details. They're all here inside this bundle. That's pretty cool. I don't even have to be online. I can be on a plane at this point and start playing with it. Although, all joking aside, you do actually have to be connected to AWS services. I was talking to my friend the other day, and he was playing with this as he was in a flight to New York. And I'm like, that is cloud computing. That is really, really the true definition of it. Bad joke, but it's literal, and I love that. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up. So what I have right now is, I'm going to pop over here to the files, my sample app. And you can see all of this has been created by the hub. Again, either iOS or Android. And I have the text rather large to see. I'm going to go ahead and expand this. I'm not going to go through every line, but you can see again some of the heavy lifting that is done here for you. If I go into the Mobile Hub client, I can see the code available here. If I go into frameworks, actually expand this so I can see better. Look at the frameworks that have automatically been added to this project for me. This was an effort in and of itself, actually. When you start a new project in Xcode and you want to get the AWS services, there are steps you would have to do to make that work. It's all done for you. If I pop into the specific code here, here's the Cloud Logic code to make Cloud Logic work. This is the code you would have had to write yourself. And again, the best practices, in the sense that this is written by the team, the AWS team, who is looking at what is the right way to do this. With all the internal knowledge that the AWS team has about the mobile services and also the services that we all connect to, this is written with their best of breed and best practices incorporated into the code. Same with mobile analytics and so forth. You get the idea. Let me show you this. This is interesting. These are all the keys, or the IDs. Here's my Amazon Cognito region, the identity pool ID, Amazon Mobile Analytics app ID. All of this stuff, I'd copy and paste from the console. I don't have to think about it anymore. It's very cool. Okay, so let me go ahead and run the app. And as I do, zoom back out, I'll make sure I've got everything set up right here, iPhone 6. And I'm going to make sure that my screen is the right. I'm going to tempt fate here and back it up a bit. There we go. That's better. Okay, so now we can see everything run better. And here we go. Here's the sample app. So you get a different sample app, by the way, when in user sign-on, if I choose sign-on is mandatory versus optional. This is the optional sample app. It actually has more to it, which is very cool. And first of all, I'm not signed in. Notice my sign-in option is here. If I choose user sign-in, we're going to be using Cognito here. I'm going to go down to the bottom of the screen and say demo user identity. And since I'm not signed in, but Cognito is still wired up, Cognito is sending me back a unique user identifier. And if you're familiar with Cognito, you know you have the unauthenticated user identifier. Very, very valuable. Most of our apps, a lot of our apps, we don't want to, when someone downloads from the App Store, especially if it's a consumer app, we don't want to initially say, hey, log in, unless it's connected with a service they're already part of, what have you. Quite often, we want a user to be able to use the app a little bit and then optionally choose to log in when they want to get to a certain point. But we want to understand that user as a unique user. So that's what this has given us. This is the code, wired that up, show it to me, put it on the screen. I can take this code, do whatever I want with it. But let's go further. Let me sign in. Remember I connected to Facebook? Going to facebook.com right now. I have a little sample app called Polled that I made. And clicking OK, and cha, I'm now signed in. And if I go back to the same screen where I saw that I was a demo user, I have this ridiculous photo of me. So there you are. There's my user. Thank you. So it's impressive. Mobile Hub is really impressive. It's like we're competing now. Okay, if they go louder, we know what to do. Okay. So app content delivery. Again, here's the text that's similar to the text that we saw in the hub that showed us what this feature means, what it's going to do. And again, keep in mind, this is not just screens. It is the code that does this as a demo to show you this is how you're doing it. So here is my cache details of what files have been pinned to the cache. I currently have example image 3, but I'm going to go ahead and pin example image 1 and example image 2. Download and pin, and so forth. So the demo itself isn't very exciting, just a demo. You know what's happening in the background, though, is. That code that's happening is all done for you. It's very, very cool. So that's that example. For app content delivery, we're talking about S3 and CloudFront being leveraged here. User data storage, S3 and Cognito. So in this case, I'm going to demo user file storage. And I have example image.png, and I can download the file locally, delete it, remove it, delete the local copy, open it up, take a look at it. All that code's there for you. Kind of neat. A lot of code. It really is a lot of code if you've done this. And public and private data as well. And then mobile analytics, one of my favorites. Because, and by the way, I have to do this every time I talk about mobile because my job as an architect is to sit down with companies and we talk about best practices. And no matter what you're writing, even if it's a Hello World app, put analytics in it. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. If you want another user to use it, put analytics in it. And if you don't know about mobile analytics, I'll just give a little pitch of it. It's pretty much free. You think you get 100 million events recorded for free every month. And if you're making over 100 million events, then that's awesome. That is really, really cool. So from 0 to 100 million is pretty significant. And then after that, it's another million, I think, events for $1. Actually, it's, yeah, could be wrong on that. The details are, I'm sorry, what? Yeah, $1 a million. That's amazing. So put mobile analytics in your code. The data that you get back tells you what your users are doing, and that allows you to optimize your code. If you notice in the app stores, if you are writing consumer apps, if you notice in the app stores, the apps that are the most successful are the ones that are updated the most frequently. And the reason why they're updated the most frequently, sometimes it's bugs, sometimes it's features, but the dirty secret of the industry is sometimes they're changing the experience because it was poor before. They're never going to admit that, but the analytics told them that. The analytics told them when people gave up, when people went through certain features, got frustrated. It's that frustration factor. This is my soapbox. I do this every time. People who've listened to me before are probably sick of it. The frustration factor is the #1 problem in mobile development right now. Because when you install something on your Mac or your PC and your desktop, there's some effort. There's a relationship you have with it, which is much greater than the relationship of a mobile app. I'll download something from the App Store. If I don't like it, in a moment, it's gone. I kill it. I never look back. And that's the problem. You guys put your blood, sweat, and tears into the mobile apps you build. So don't waste that effort by being ignorant as to the frustration factor. Put analytics in, and here, now the reason why I was talking about that is the custom events, because you need to go a step further. It's not just adding mobile analytics, but inside your app, you want to be thoughtful about where to track custom events to know what that frustration factor is. A simple example is a game. We all know games have multiple levels. And let's say I get to level 7 of a particular game and I can never get past 7. I get so frustrated I give up. If you're the game developer, you would want to know that 95% of your population never got to, or users never got to game level 8. You would want to know that and fine-tune level 7 to bring that down to a more rational number. So you would put the code that is part of the mobile hub's generated code into specific places within your app when you want to track that. Maybe it's a game level. Maybe it's choosing a particular armor to put on your warrior. Maybe it is a communication. Every time you do a send with, imagine an app like Slack or something. You're sending a message. You want to track that. Of course, you have other systems that can track that as well, but the important part about the analytics here is you want to tie those systems up and understand. Maybe you tried to send a message, but it was a little bit too slow, and the analytics can give you that information. Okay, so this is a demo of a custom event or a monetization event. When a purchase is happening, an in-app purchase, which mobile analytics allows you to track, some purchase activity has happened. Here's the JSON that returns back from the event. It was submitted, actually. So this is the details about that type of monetization event. Okay. So while I'm on analytics, let me pop into the console. So what I'm going to do now is, as Andy said, the mobile hub is going to light up later. I don't believe it is at the moment, so It is? Let's see here. Yay, there it is. All right, under mobile services. Now that's dynamic, because when this started, it wasn't there. That's pretty cool. Okay, so I've been using mobile analytics. Let's pop into there and take a look. Now, remember the provisioning I had. If I drop this down, I have my sample app automatically provisioned. There's John's Mobile Hub app. Back up a little bit. And I can see particular details right now that, to be clear, what I'm showing you are the custom events and so forth and the details. There is I believe it's a 60-minute latency between things coming in, so I'll pop back here and see if we can grab those events and see them later. But sometimes I like to come in. But what I have done is, you notice I had that other app built out. So that was so I could show you this. When I go to my sample app, you can see the analytics, daily retention, just today, ta-da, because of course we just lit up today. But mobile analytics gives you all these great charts. Again, tons of events for free, incredibly useful. The data can also be exported to S3 and Redshift to do some really powerful analysis on top of the analytics beyond what you have. So take a look at that. And now I can go back to the console and click back on Mobile Hub. This is awesome. Okay, now I can point these out. These are the options that you have on the left-hand side: configure, build, test, analytics, resources. Just gives you a real quick way to dive right into that particular screen without having to go click, click, click. It's nice. And I'm going to go a few more things I want to call out here. When I wired up the option Mobile Hub, you notice each one retains its state. And when I want to go in and change the options, I have to be thoughtful about what I'm doing, because my code that I downloaded has a certain state. The code is not, I mentioned multiple times, it's dynamic code. It's dynamic before it's downloaded. So once you've downloaded it and you've changed some features here, you're going to want to download a new version of your code. But in not all cases. And so what I mean by that is, you may actually want to make changes that will actually change the provisioning of the service, and your app code doesn't need to be re-downloaded. So you want to be thoughtful about, after you have configured Mobile Hub, downloaded your app, and gone back and made changes, you could decouple the relationship between the app and the settings here. It just takes some thought, I guess, is what I'm saying. What I like to do when I've been playing with it, and again, this is all new, Andy's team who has been working on this for a while, but I like to be very careful to provision, then download is my very last step. That's what you want to do, okay? So I want to go back here into Cloud Logic to finish up. So run backend code in the cloud, demo Cloud Logic, and this is that a hello world function. You actually are automatically given a hello world function with Mobile Hub. We do that so the demo can work. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, invoke this function, and I'm going to get a result back from the server, and you'll see at the bottom. This went up to the cloud, Java script function ran, gave me a result, and came back. So all of the functions that I clicked and turned on when I provisioned are available in my code now, and I can use those. As I've gone through this, one more thing about my soapbox again. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but every opportunity I take, I preach. Because in my past, and this isn't anything to do with the quality of developer I am or anything to do with my personal experience. I'm just giving you an understanding of where the industry has gone. So I mentioned before, at the beginning of my discussion, in my past, mobile development was being done. We lit up servers on racks, and there's a photo sometimes when I give presentations, I show a photo of myself, super, super proud of the startup that I was at, where we had funding of, I think it was 1.2 million, and we had like 8 racks of servers in a data center, and I'm standing in front of them like, look at our racks of servers, as proud as can be. This was early, well, after 2000, before 2008, probably 2003 or so. And so I was just ecstatic about this, and we were doing mobile application development. And we were doing significant apps, apps that had, it was before the app stores that we know and love today, but they're apps that were on deck for carriers. And we crashed all the time. We had so much usage with all this server capacity. We'd buy blade servers, install more servers, we crashed all the time. So, of course, everyone knows the value the cloud services provide now. It's the auto scaling we get with EC2, and all of the capacity and scale that we get by being smart about wiring up AWS services. It's brilliant, it's awesome. But it goes further than that. So the mobile services you see have something in common. They don't need EC2 instances. You don't need to go pick an instance, light up EC2, pick your OS, set up the security, provision all the details of that server, create a template to go ahead and create more servers. These services are managed for you. And what's important about that is to consider the fact that the scale is managed for you. And back to that frustration factor on mobile development, part of the frustration factor is scale is a huge part of it. If your app starts slowing down, if your app experience degrades, your users give up. They walk away, they kill your app. They don't download it again. They delete it and don't download it again. So AWS Mobile Services team has put a lot of effort into figuring out how to give services that automatically respond to the demand curve that you're going to have. And if you write a good app, you better have a great demand curve. You want that. Everyone wants that. So most of us here probably at one time or another wore a pager and would go to bed at night wondering if it would go off, and we never slept very well in some cases. You don't have to think about that now. If you, again, code your app with thought and focus on the AWS mobile services, not just all the AWS services, and they all apply really well. In the talk that I was just in, we had Twitter come up. I'm not Twitter, I'm sorry, Tinder. Tinder come up and mention that they are using 1,100 EC2 instances. That's awesome. That's a ton of EC2 instances, a ton of management. But in some cases, you can build an app that scales without needing those instances. By using Lambda correctly, by using the Cognito, using the user data storage, using S3, using the services that the mobile hub helps you with, without having to think about automatically scaling. Again, we do that for you. We do that heavy lifting. And had I had this years ago, I would have had a lot less gray hair than I have right now. But at least, like I said, I'll take every opportunity I can to preach about it now. And that's why, to me, the mobile hub is such an incredible, valuable tool, because not only is it easy to use, but it reinforces that. It reinforces that, here, build a mobile app, but let's not go ahead yet and light up instances. Let's go ahead and see how far we can go with the features you need built with the mobile services first. So, okay? Thank you very much. So, Andy?
Thank you, John. I grew up a preacher's kid, so I recognize a good preacher when I see one. Are the slides up? So I just want to close with a couple of thoughts and share something I saw this morning. So my favorite tweet after Werner's keynote announcing the service, someone tweeted out, AWS Mobile Hub, a new DDoS attack on the app stores. And I thought that was someone who really got what we were trying to do here today, right? Not that we're trying to DDoS the app stores, but we're trying to make it so easy for you to build apps that you can now unleash a new wave of productivity and create all kinds of apps. So I can't wait to see what you do with the service. So glad it's up in the console now. You can get started today. That's what I just wanted to summarize here. You can see it in the management console or navigate directly to it. All the services that you saw in the resources panel that John showed today, those are provisioned in US East 1. We'll be adding Dublin and Tokyo shortly, later this year. I also want to emphasize that AWS Mobile Hub is a free service. So there's no extra cost for using it to provision your AWS services. There are the standard charges for each of those services. We talked about analytics, free up to 100 million, $1 a million events after that. So those standard charges apply, but nothing for the mobile hub. And finally, I just want to let you know we're just getting started. We rushed like crazy. We were feverishly coding to get something to you because we knew what a pain point it was, and we really saw the dramatic impact of getting down to 10 minutes or less to build your apps. But there's a whole bunch of stuff we want to build next, and we'd love to hear your ideas. You can email us directly at aws-mobile-hub@amazon.com. Send us your ideas. What do you want us to build next? Okay, a couple other parting thoughts. There are 4 remaining mobile sessions between today and tomorrow. I'll just call them out quickly. There's a workshop going on right now, which you can still catch the second half of, which is a super interesting one. We've got another session today on building mobile apps for IoT devices. We've got a session on identity and data synchronization, and a super interesting one tomorrow morning. I know 9 a.m. on the last day is a little bit tough, but Sandeep is going to take some analytics data and show you how to use that with Amazon QuickSight, our latest business intelligence tool, to go really deep into your custom data for analysis. And he's also going to show you how to use that with Amazon machine learning to do custom experiences for your mobile app users. So those 4 are all available yet. And parting thought, would love to hear your feedback on the session today. We read all of your feedback, and it's a great source for us to improve for next year. So thanks for your attention today, and can't wait to see what you build with the Mobile Hub.